Well, hello there. For anyone keeping track of the channel or any newcomers, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. As you might have noticed, we've been making some changes. We're kind of turning this into more of a studio branded thing and not just a singular environment for just one type of content. I do a lot of different things, gaming, movie reviews, writing, things of that nature. And I'm just all over the place. There's too many things doing too many other things that when I originally thought about building up a brand new channel for just my movie stuff, I was like, managing two channels and trying to get two channels up there, it seems like it's a little nonsensical. Like, why not just put it all in one spot? And lo and behold, Ghost Potato Studio was born. So now this is a channel not only for gaming, but it's also going to be where I'll be posting some mini documentaries, which is kind of what I wanted to do for the rebirth of another channel, If Flicks Could Talk, which was up many years ago. I tried to keep track of it. I had posted maybe like 10 videos on that channel, but it was becoming too much to handle. I was trying to do like one video a week, and I was spending way too much time doing all of that editing to make them as good as I possibly can. And this is an intro basically for one of those videos, because now If Flicks Could Talk, I was going to reborn it, but it's no longer going to be a thing. We're now doing everything from the studio. Everything's going to be through this channel. You're going to get my podcasts. You're going to get my gaming. You're going to get my little movie documentaries. You're going to get fun little clips that I'm making. I'm going to be cross-promoting them across my new TikTok channel as well. We're back there after I got banned about 6 months ago. I finally decided I didn't hate them anymore, so I'm bringing that back now and kind of building that up. But I was going through some of my old content, and I was thinking about how I really did love making these videos. I might consider making some list-based things in the future, but for now I kind of like the documentary style that I'm going for, which you can see that first video, The Unfortunate Case of the Underground, that got posted a few days ago, and I'm really proud of that. I'm working on the next one right now. That's going to be really fun. But I revisited some of my old content, and I was like, some of these videos are still really good. So even though this is a little outdated, the way that it's kind of formatted, I haven't changed anything, but I was using a completely different editing program. I was using a completely different microphone setup. I was actually recording the sound for it in my closet, if you believe that. I was in a little box with a microphone in it, and I was standing up talking to the microphone, holding my script in front of me. So things have changed a lot. My equipment has changed a lot, so things are definitely different now, more so than it was when I was making those videos. But it's the Halloween season, and this was a video I was really proud of. It's the first one I did, so I figured in honor of that video and in honor of this season's Halloween season, I decided to do this little repost, which again, nothing has changed about it. It's exactly how it was back then. So mind you, the style is very different. The sound is very off. And these are movies that were a big deal to me at that point in time when I made this video 5 years ago. Of course, if I made one now, it would be a completely different scenario. But I still really like this video, so I hope you like it too. It's under the title If Flicks Could Talk, but now it's going to be part of the Ghost Potato Studio journey. So I hope you're new or returning and you enjoy this, and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, wait for some more, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you. It's October, the year's almost over, and what a way to end the year than with a couple of good horror movies. I'm going to give you 31 horror movie gems you may or may not have heard about. I've put this list together following 3 basic rules. Rule number 1, as the title suggests, these are all horror movies or in the horror movie subgenres. The one thing you won't find on this list is comedy horror. Rule number 2, as far as I can research, only 2 of the films on this list have actually premiered in theaters. Almost all of these films can only be found on either streaming services or by just knowing somebody who has a copy of it. And finally, rule number 3 is, it's also tough to give it a restriction of how far back I'm willing to go. So this only goes back to as far as 2008, so it's not necessarily within the last 10 years, but the last 12 years, but we're just going to say that that's as far back as I was willing to go to put this list together. Also keep in mind that none of these films are in order. This isn't a top 31, these are 31 films for you to binge on. With that being said, first up on the list, In Fear from 2013. If you're afraid of traveling in places you don't know, or even getting lost, or being on the road at night, no lights, there's no signs, there's nothing to give you any direction, this probably isn't the movie for you. But if you're okay with that, or even if you want to test that fear, I would suggest watching this film. I know a lot of people that can't even get off a dark road in New Jersey. The element of the film is all about getting lost and the worst thing that could possibly happen when you're lost. There's no ghosts, there's no demons, it's just you, and hopefully you have a flashlight. Darkness is a very real fear for some people, and if you don't like being stuck in the dark when you're traveling and all you've got is your car, this might not be the movie for you. But if you're okay with that, give this movie a chance. Next up, Apartment 143 from 2011. It is a mockumentary-style film, and what I will say off the bat is you will probably hear me talk about a lot of these films. Found footage-type films are one of my favorite types in the horror movie genre, and this is another film that does justice to that genre. It's based around a family who just lost the wife and mother, and they're coping with that loss. They start dealing with some being who's haunting and terrorizing them. So what do? They bring in a bunch of paranormal scientists to try to help them figure it out. It's like Poltergeist meets Paranormal Activity in a 3-bedroom apartment. Next up, The Chosen from 2015. Now, I know this might be a bit hard for some people because it doesn't look like the most top-notch quality film. It doesn't even look like the script is done very well. It's not the script or the setting that you get involved in the movie. It's the story that the movie is portraying. It's a common possession tale. Little sister gets possessed by a demon. Brother wants to save her. What does the brother have to do to save her? Well, the demon wants the brother to sacrifice 6 other family members, direct family members, in order for the demon to give the sister back up. So now if that doesn't really get you going, I don't know what else will. I've never really seen anything for that kind of portrayal, but it is a good portrayal of a possession story in a different light than what you're used to seeing. So I would suggest watching this as well. Next up, Splinter from 2008. I love the concept of this film. It's an original idea that I had never seen before. It has its moments where it could be better. It's another film that you watch for the concept. The idea that there is a creature or even a living organism that infects other living organisms, no matter what it is. A person, a dog, a tree. It can literally infect just about anything and mutate it into the creature that it is. What else is really creepy about it is that, say you're a man, and the man gets chopped in half, and he's infected. That man can reattach to another piece of the infected that is within vicinity of it, and it can become this really grotesque kind of figure. It's kind of like John Carpenter's The Thing, which I'm a big fan of, and that's probably why this film has a bit of a soft spot for me. Now let's talk about a bit of a twofer. VHS from 2012 and VHS 2 from 2013. Why did I put these films together? Because I don't necessarily feel that it is worth separating them when they are just really good films by themselves, but I wanted to put them together to kind of discuss what they are in its entirety. Again, we're talking about found footage type films. They don't really overlap with between what happens in 1 to what happens in 2, but what I like about that it's found footage, it's also anthology based. If you're a fan of anthology based things like Tales from the Dark Side, or even the original Tales from the Crypt from 1972, this is a film that takes those concepts and puts it into the found footage genre. And I believe both films do both those genres as a collaboration very well. It's about 5 stories, all based around one singular story. If you haven't seen these movies or heard of these movies, I would suggest watching them, especially if you're a fan of found footage. Next up, The Bloodlands from 2014. This is based in an isolated farmhouse in Scotland. A happy couple buy it cheap and look to start their life. Things seem to be going well, but once night falls, they realize they are not welcome here. I love those bittersweet revenge films, especially if they're done well. Moving on, let's talk about The Hollow from 2015. This is a fantastic tale of family and sacrifice. When a couple moves into a remote house, they think it would be a great environment for their new family. They are happy together, and they have a beautiful newborn baby. What no one told them was that the woods surrounding the house is infested with demons. Haunted woods doesn't excite you? Want to guess what they steal from the families? Coming up next, Dream House from 2011. My only gripe, it's one of those movies that I can only watch once, and I can't tell you too much about it because that's going to kind of ruin it for you. This is one of those films that I think flew under a lot of people's radars, and even though it's got a great leading cast, and it's a film that you can only really watch once, it's still worth that one-time playthrough. Alright, now let's talk about one of my favorite entries on this list, Pontypool from 2008. This movie seemed to have been made with a very old school outlook on horror. Scare people without them knowing what they're supposed to be afraid of. That's very old school, black and white, 1940s, 1930s horror movie technique. And this film does justice to what those movies did for us. There's tons of dialogue that build and create a terrifying world without ever leaving the basement of a rundown building where they seem to be broadcasting a radio show. Yes, you heard me right. All dialogue has to do with them being stuck in a radio station. Don't get me wrong, that didn't sound intriguing to me when I was reading the synopsis before I watched this film, but once I sat down and gave it a shot, it was well worth it. Another favorite of mine popping up on this list, Christie from 2014. It's a bit of an overdone concept, yes, but wow, do they do it really well for this film. What I like most is that even though it's built in the foundation of people go to kill college student because they want to broadcast it on the internet, it's not just a matter of that being overdone so many times, but it's how this movie does it that makes it one of my favorite on the list. It's not just about the murderers and what they're doing it or why they're doing it. It's also about the college student who they're hunting down, who's not dumb. She's not falling over branches. She's not tripping over anything. She actually has survival instincts that make her last a while against these people who are chasing her. And it's one of those reasons why this is one of my favorite. If you just like the idea of watching a character not play dumb when they're about to get murdered, watch this film. I guarantee you won't regret it. Now we're going to talk about Contracted from 2013, and god damn it, this movie is so good, it pisses me off that nobody talks about it. Of course, it was one of those straight to streaming type films, or if it only popped up on your feed while you were searching, that's the only way you would kind of know about it. But let's just cover the bases because I don't want to give you too much information on this, but let me just give you what the description for this film is on most streaming services. After a one-night stand, a young woman becomes alarmingly ill, but what she thinks is an STD turns out to be far worse. You can take with that what you will, but you're not going to understand it unless you watch the film, and I guarantee you, you will not regret watching this film. Okay, now let's talk about The Last Shift from 2014. This is another movie I can't say too much about because I feel like it would ruin it, but let me give you the cliff notes. Imagine you're a cop, it's your first night on the job, and your first assignment is watching over the last night of the old precinct before they shut down and move locations. Sounds easy, right? Now imagine you're alone, and a lot of freaky things start happening. It's just you and the walls of a police station where dozens of criminals have passed through. Who knows if anybody's died in there? Again, I can't give you too much, otherwise I'm going to spoil it, but I do suggest if you don't mind films that do a lot with very little cast, one main character who is the new cop at the precinct for its last night. Alright, we're going to keep it going with The Den from 2013. This might just be me, but again, I'm a sucker for found footage films. It's definitely worth sitting through if you like found footage films, but it is a good story. Think Hostel meets The Blair Witch Project. That's the best description I can give for this film without giving too much away. Next up, we're going to talk about Mr. Jones from 2013. It's hard for me to talk about this one because I have a love-hate relationship with it. Its story is very unique, and its delivery is almost perfect. Again, it's found footage. This is a film that delivers on not just the scare factor, but also the story. At a certain point, it sort of lost it for me, but that's just me. Other than that, it's worth sitting through. Now I want to talk about Honeymoon from 2014. This is one of those movies that does so much and does it so well with such a small cast. One of the main actors is Rose Leslie, who you might recognize as Ygritte from Game of Thrones. I believe this is her first film debut, though it's the only film that I've seen her in since Game of Thrones. It is definitely worth sitting through whether or not she was in it. A couple go on their honeymoon. Everything is fine until one weird night, the husband finds the wife naked in the woods. Now, she's been acting strange, and he doesn't understand why. What do? You know nothing. That's what you do. Alright, this one's going to be a bit of a tough one. An American Ghost Story from 2014. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I put it on thinking I was gonna laugh at it the whole time. The second it starts, the low budget quality nearly jumps off the screen and smacks you right in the face. It's clear that they did not have the funds needed to pull off what they might have envisioned for this film. But minus the poor lighting and uninteresting dialogue, this movie is packed with scares. Some cheap, some expected, but done well, including some very interesting effects thrown in at the right moments. You almost get a feel that they focused more on getting people scared than on worrying about a good movie. I think it was worth it, and I think you'll appreciate the simplicity. Now let's talk about Starry Eyes from 2014. Have you guys ever seen or heard of the movie The Neon Demon? Maybe, maybe not. This is the film the Neon Demon wishes it could be. I'm still traumatized from watching it. It's just done so well. I don't know who this actress is, but she better have gotten somewhere with this role. And go figure, that's pretty much the premise of the entire thing. A failed actress living in Hollywood finds a way to make it on the big screen, but doesn't know if what the director wants her to do is worth it. But anything is worth being a star, right? Popping up now is The Creep from 2014. Again, not the best quality film, but it's another film with a short cast that does very well with the characters involved. Also, it is found footage style, but it's not just the found footage that makes me enjoy the movie so much. It's the concept of what the scare tactics are for the film. This is a film that kind of goes off the fear of, what if a Craigslist ad went bad? That's essentially what you get from this film. And if that's something that scares you and you're interested in seeing how that concept would play out, I suggest watching this because it is definitely one of the better versions of scaring you by using something so realistic. Oh, I'm getting hired to do a job. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, this is the movie that shows you what could possibly go wrong. Alright, let's bring it up to a little bit more modern with The Possession of Hannah Grace from 2018. This is a more recent film, and I feel like it is worth recognizing. I don't remember it getting a lot of publicity, but even if it did, I feel like I should mention it just so I can bring it to light again. This film has a fantastic concept revolving around something that's overdone. As the title suggests, it revolves around the possession of a young girl. During the exorcism, the young girl dies. What do you think happens with the body of a dead, possessed person? It has to go to the morgue, right? Well, this is a story based around what happens if the dead person from an exorcism isn't really dead, and they start coming back to life in a morgue. In a morgue, surrounded by other dead bodies. It's Dead Body Central. What do you think's gonna happen? Alright, now we're gonna put a Netflix original on, The Ritual from 2017. One of the better quality and better scripted films on the list. It's a wonder why it isn't spoken about more. Obviously, in the horror film space, you're gonna get a lot of concepts that are way overdone. A couple of friends want to take a trip. It starts getting weird. They're in a cabin, in the woods, and they start getting attacked. I can't say much without giving too much of the film away, but it is definitely intense, and it is certainly scary and worth watching. Next up, The Room from 2019. No, not that room. This is actually A Good Room. Another film that I hate that I can't go too much into it for explaining it for you, because I really want to give you reasons to watch this movie. But let's just say, imagine you buy a new house, you discover a room in that house, where if you stand inside of it and you wish for something, the room grants you wishes. Yeah, that's what I said. The Room made it come true. So yeah, put yourself in that scenario. What would you do? How many things would you wish for? What if there's something you want that you shouldn't be wishing for? Oops, too late. Now we're going to talk about Haunt from 2013. It's a typical ghost story, but it's the circumstances that the story is wrapped around that gets you. And it has a lot of twists and turns to make you keep thinking about what's going on or what's going to happen next. Now let's talk about another Haunt from 2019. Yes, two films with the same name, but no, this one is completely its own, and although its concept might seem like it's overdone, this is definitely one of the times it's done well. One of the producers is Eli Roth, who is huge in the horror world, so you know if his name is attached to it, it's definitely worth it. It's about an extreme haunted house attraction that turns out to be a bit more than a group of friends believed it to be. It's super intense, and even though it's an overdone concept, this film does a great job storytelling. Now let's talk about Jezebel from 2014. It's about a girl who gets into a tragic accident that leaves her with almost nothing. She returns to her childhood home to recover. Unfortunately, an evil spirit is after her and she can't get away fast enough. She's in a wheelchair the whole film. There's a ton of scary moments packed in this film, and it's got a great plot backing it up. Alright, we're going to bring it up to 2017 with The Vault. The only person you'll recognize in this film is James Franco. That's right, I said James Franco. It's a super random film for even him to be in. And he's not even a main character. Sometimes a film will do something that I love, and that's take two concepts that have never been done together before and put them together in such a way that it makes for a great film. This is that film. When have you ever heard of a bank robbery going wrong, but to the extent where it's the building that the bank is in is haunted, and so the bank robbers start getting attacked by the haunted bank? Never have I seen something like this done before, and if that doesn't make you want to watch it, maybe James Franco with a mustache does. Now I feel like I should mention ATM from 2012. The only reason I want to bring this up is, again, it's a film that does a great job with such a small cast in such a small setting. It's about a group of people who stop at an ATM machine, and then they're trapped by a killer who's outside waiting for them to come out. They can't escape. The weirder thing is, where is there an ATM in the middle of a parking lot in this country? But they make it work. It's intense, and it definitely makes you feel helpless in a way. Think if the movie The Phone Booth was a horror film instead. Now we're going to go a bit further back and we're going to talk about Triangle from 2009. This is a roller coaster of a movie. The twist and turns this movie takes you on is enough to keep you anxiety-ridden all the way to the end. I hate to do this, but I really can't go too deep into it because I don't want to ruin it, because it's one of those films that the more you explain it, the more you give it away. This is not the film I want to spoil because it is definitely a film that you're going to be glad I didn't. What you really want to do when you sit down to watch this movie is you got to make sure that you don't blink too much. Otherwise, you're definitely going to miss something. Alright, next up, A Dark Song from 2016. This film is a bit of a slow burn, but it's worth it all the way through. It has a sort of Hereditary vibe, but it's a bit gloomier. For the slow burn that it is, it definitely fills in what could have been dead space with a lot of rich content. The story is that of a woman who hires an occultist and rents out an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere in hopes to contact her dead son. Does that sound like things are going to go well? Definitely not. But she's desperate, and this is the stuff that happens when you're desperate. And I'm going to follow that up with XX from 2017. Now that's 2 X's, not 3. This isn't that kind of movie, and it definitely doesn't have Vin Diesel in it. This is a unique anthology-style film that puts 4 stories together, and each one is written and directed by a woman. An all-female directed film, and that was a big part of the promotion campaign. It is extremely good, and each story is unique and unsettling and scary, and it definitely delivers on a movie worth watching this Halloween season. I don't know if they'll ever do this again, but they should. These 4 women particularly, because they made a hit. Alright, last but not least, one of my favorite on the list is Circle from 2015. I don't know where this idea came from, but I'm shocked it wasn't picked up for a major scripted movie. Its uniqueness in its plot stands out with its character complexity, and it flows like water. Sure, it's a straight-to-stream film that obviously has no one attached to it that really matters, but that also adds to its plot. It's all about strangers, and how the human psyche is a terrible thing when faced with grave situations. Alright, and before we end it all, I have a couple of honorable mentions. First up, Hell House LLC from 2015. The only reason it's not on the main list is because I feel like it's just my soft spot for this film in general. It's based on some friends deciding to open up a haunted house attraction, and the house they wind up buying turns out to actually be haunted. It sounds cool and maybe like it's overdone, but my soft spot comes from the fact that it is based in an actual haunted house attraction in Pennsylvania. And I've been there, and it's a lot of fun, and that's why I like it, but most people might not. You can check it out if you want. It's got a few sequels, but I haven't bothered with them, so I can't really comment on that. And lastly, The Changeling from 1980. This is a classic horror film. I feel like it isn't spoken about enough, and the only reason it didn't make the main list was because it was the only old film I could think of to put on it. So that's why it only winds up here at the end. And there you have it, 31 horror movie gems you might not have heard about to get you going into the Halloween season. If you think that a film should have been on this list, leave me a comment below and tell me about it. I love recommendations for films I might have not seen before. If you agree with my recommendations, if this video gave you some films that you can watch, or if you just like the video itself, hit the like button. Share the video if you know some other people that could use some horror films this season. It's always appreciated. Subscribe for more videos like this. I upload once a week, and the best way to see more content is only if you subscribe. Thank you again for watching. My name is Jesse, and if flicks could talk, here's what they would say.